I thought the worst thing my wife could do was stop loving me. I was wrong. Sabrina didn't just end our marriage. She stood beside another man, handed him the work I had spent 7 years building, and helped him convince the world that I had never deserved any of it. The anniversary dinner was supposed to be our last honest conversation. I had reserved the private dining room at the Foster Grand, the first hotel Sabrina and I had opened together. I brought the wine we had saved from our wedding and a leather-bound album filled with photographs from the years before private jets, magazine covers, and boardroom applause. Sabrina arrived 40 minutes late. Damien Crowe walked in beside her. I stayed seated. Sabrina paused when she saw the table set for two. Her mouth tightened, but she didn't apologize. "You invited him?" I asked. "He's part of this conversation." "No." I closed the album in front of me. "He's the reason we're having it." Damien pulled out a chair and sat without being asked. His expensive suit fit perfectly, and so did the sympathetic expression he had practiced for investors. "Let's keep this professional." "Nolan." I looked at him. "You're sleeping with my wife." Professional stopped being an option. Sabrina's face hardened. "Don't make this ugly." I almost laughed. "You brought your boyfriend to our anniversary dinner. He is not the issue. He's been transferring your company's vendor contracts to shell companies controlled by his fund." Damien leaned back. "That accusation has already been reviewed by an auditor your fund hired." Sabrina placed her purse on the table with a sharp movement. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You always have to be the smartest person in the room. I showed you the debt reports. You showed me documents you interpreted to fit your opinion. They weren't opinions." Sabrina. "Crow Capital is over-leveraged. Damien needs your IPO to cover obligations he hasn't disclosed." Damien smiled faintly. "You see what he does? Every conversation becomes a lecture." I ignored him and looked at my wife. "The resort land cannot be used as collateral. It belongs to the company. It belongs to the Pierce family trust. And you've hidden behind that trust every time I wanted to expand. I protected it because my father spent 30 years keeping that hotel alive." Sabrina folded her arms. "There. Your father. Your legacy. Your rules. Everything has always been about what Nolan Pierce thinks is responsible. I sold my investment portfolio when your first hotel couldn't make payroll. I paid you back. I built your operating system. You were my husband. You helped. I trained your first 27 managers, and I gave you a title." I stared at her. She seemed to realize what she had said, but she didn't take it back. Damien's mouth curved at one corner. That small smile told me everything. He had spent months whispering into the space between Sabrina's ambition and insecurity. He hadn't convinced her that I was incompetent. That would have been impossible. He had convinced her that admitting my value made her smaller. Sabrina reached into her purse and placed two folders on the table. One was labeled Dissolution of Marriage. The other carried the company's seal. I looked at the second folder first. Board resolution? "The emergency meeting was this afternoon," she said. "You held a board vote without notifying me. You were the subject of the vote." I opened the folder. Removal from all executive and advisory positions. Suspension of system access. Mandatory investigation into misuse of proprietary information. My eyes moved to the attached audit summary. The report claimed I had copied internal data, redirected consulting fees, and used my marriage to gain unauthorized control of Foster House hospitality. The numbers were false. The authorization dates had been altered. Two of the signatures had been copied from contracts I had signed years earlier. I looked at Sabrina. "You know this report is fraudulent." Her jaw shifted. Damien answered for her. "The board found sufficient cause for concern." I didn't ask the board. I kept my eyes on my wife. "You saw the original contracts. You know those dates are wrong." Sabrina looked away for half a second. "That was enough." "You knew," I said. "The report raised questions. You voted to remove me based on evidence you knew was questionable. I voted to protect my company. From the man who built half of it. You don't own my success." "Nolan, I never said I did. You didn't have to. Every warning, every restriction, every time you told me to slow down, that you made it clear you believed I'd fail without you." I pushed the audit report toward her. "I believed you would fail if you handed your company to a man trying to loot it." Damien's smile disappeared. Sabrina's voice rose. "Damien believes in my vision. Damien believes in your balance sheet. That's enough." "No, it isn't." I stood and placed both hands on the table. "For months, I tried to speak to you as your husband. You avoided me. I spoke to you as a partner. You accused me of being threatened. I showed you evidence. You called it jealousy." Sabrina's eyes flashed. "Because you are jealous. Of him?" I pointed at Damien. He has a collapsing fund, a talent for forged reports, and the moral discipline of a raccoon in an unlocked kitchen. Damien rose slowly. Careful. Or what? You'll fabricate another invoice? Sabrina stepped between us. Sit down. Both of you. I didn't move. Neither did Damien. Then Sabrina turned toward me and lowered her voice. I'm offering you a clean exit. She opened the divorce folder and removed another document. A permanent technology authorization. She wanted the rights to my operational models, procurement structures, crisis protocols, and vendor network. Everything I had designed before and during our marriage. You signed this, she said, and you'll receive $5 million after the divorce is finalized. I studied her face. 7 years ago, she had cried in my arms because she couldn't afford to pay the staff at her first hotel. I had transferred every liquid asset I owned before sunrise. Now she was offering to buy my life's work as if she were purchasing furniture from a former employee. You think $5 million pays for everything? It's generous. Damien adjusted his cuff. More generous than most boards would be under these circumstances. I looked at Sabrina. Did you plan this before or after you started sleeping with him? Her expression cracked. Don't reduce this to sex. I'm not. The sex is the least expensive thing you gave him. Damien grabbed the edge of the table. Sabrina lifted a hand to stop him. I removed my wedding ring. My fingers were steady. That surprised me. I set the ring on top of the divorce agreement. You betrayed the marriage. I said, I won't beg you to stay. Sabrina swallowed. For 1 second, she looked like the woman who used to fall asleep with her head on my chest while we planned hotels we couldn't afford to build. Then Damien touched her back. Her expression hardened again. I picked up the pen and signed the divorce documents. Sabrina exhaled. Relief. That hurt more than I expected. Then I tore the technology authorization in half. Damien's face changed. Sabrina stared at the paper. What are you doing? Ending every incomplete license at midnight. You can't. I own the underlying architecture. The company depends on that system. You should have considered that before accusing its creator of theft. Her chair scraped backward. Nolan, don't be vindictive. I'm not destroying anything currently licensed. I'm refusing to donate future updates to the people framing me. You'll damage hundreds of employees. No, Damien will. When he moves operating funds through his shell companies. I sent the evidence to federal regulators 2 hours ago. Damien stepped toward me. You made a serious mistake. I met his eyes. So did you. I picked up the anniversary album and the unopened wine. Sabrina's voice followed me. If you walk out like this, there's no coming back. I stopped at the door. There was no coming back the moment you voted against the truth. By morning, every financial publication had my name in a headline. Bitter husband attacks wife's rising hotel empire. Disgraced executive accused of data misuse. Sabrina Foster frees her company from controlling X. The first client ended our contract before breakfast. 3 more followed by noon. A licensing committee opened a formal review. The bank financing the renovation of my father's hotel suspended funding pending the outcome of the investigation. Within 4 days, construction stopped. Within 2 weeks, the staff was sent home. The property entered preliminary foreclosure proceedings. I fought at first. I called attorneys, auditors, lenders, and former partners. Some believed me. None wanted to stand beside me publicly. Give it time, they said. Let the investigation settle. We have shareholders to consider. What they meant was simple. They thought I might be innocent. They just didn't think my innocence was worth risking their money. Eli Turner was the only person who kept showing up without being invited. He entered my apartment one afternoon, carrying takeout containers, and kicked an empty moving box out of his way. You look terrible. Good to see you too. Have you showered? This morning. He narrowed his eyes. What day do you think it is? I didn't answer. Eli set the food on the counter. Okay, that's worse than I thought. I'm working. You're sitting in the dark reading comments written by people named Hotel King 1987. I need to know what the public narrative is. The public narrative is that you're pathetic. Staring at it for 6 hours won't improve it. I closed the laptop. Anything else? Yeah. He shoved a container toward me. Eat. I'm not hungry. That wasn't a question. I leaned back and rubbed my eyes. The bank scheduled the hotel auction. Eli's expression changed. When? 6 weeks. We'll find another lender. With an active ethics investigation, you have evidence. Evidence moves slower than foreclosure. He sat across from me. You know what bothers me? I'm sure you're going to tell me. You're not falling apart because Sabrina left. I looked toward the window. Eli tapped the table. Look at me. I've heard enough advice. No, you haven't. You've heard attorneys tell you to wait and publicists tell you to smile. I'm telling you the truth. He leaned forward. She made you question whether being a decent man was stupid. My jaw tightened. That's not what this is. You gave her 7 years. She used your trust to get close enough to stab your career. Now you're wondering whether every good thing you did was just ammunition. Stop. You think selling your investments was stupid. You think training her staff was stupid. You think loving her honestly made you weak. I said stop. Eli held my gaze. You're angry because I'm right. I stood. Get out. He didn't argue. That was how I knew he was worried. At the door, he turned around. For the record, you weren't stupid. I said nothing. She was just cruel enough to make sincerity feel embarrassing. After he left, I opened the anniversary album. The first photograph showed Sabrina and me sitting on the floor of our old apartment, eating pizza from the box because we didn't own a table. She was laughing. I was looking at her like I had already won everything I wanted. I shut the album. That night, I took the wedding wine and went to Eli's restaurant. He saw the bottle and immediately shook his head. No, I'm not asking permission. You don't even like drinking. I've decided to develop new interests. I have a kitchen full of knives. Don't make me use one. I walked past him into the bar. Eli followed. Nolan, I'm not going to call Sabrina. I know. I'm not going to beg. I know. I just don't want to think for one night. That silenced him. He signaled the bartender to leave the bottle with me, then pulled out his phone. I didn't ask who he was calling. The television above the bar showed Sabrina stepping onto a red carpet with Damien's hand at her waist. A reporter asked whether they were concerned about the federal review. Damien smiled. We have nothing to hide. Sabrina looked directly into the camera. This company is finally being led by people who believe in its future. I poured another glass, then another. By the time a woman's hand removed the bottle from my reach, I had stopped counting. Give that back. I muttered. No. I recognized the voice. Beatrice Kingswell stood beside me in a black suit, her expression cold enough to stop an acquisition meeting. I frowned. What are you doing here? Preventing you from poisoning yourself with mediocre wine. It was my wedding wine. That makes it worse. She turned to the bartender. Turn off the television. The screen went black. I stared at it. Eli called you. Eli has one useful quality. Only one. He knows when a situation requires someone competent. I laughed without humor. And you came running? Her eyes narrowed. I do not run. Of course not. Heiress arrive dramatically. I reached for the bottle. Beatrice moved it behind her. Nolan, stop. Why? Because this is not you. Maybe you never knew me. Her face went still. I looked down at my empty glass. Tell me something. Beatrice. No. I haven't asked yet. You're drunk. The question will be stupid. Do people always choose the richer person? She inhaled sharply. I nodded toward the dead television. She chose Damien. Bigger fund. Bigger promises. Bigger boat. Damien's fund is insolvent. So that's your answer? My answer is that Sabrina chose a fraud because he praised the part of her that wanted to feel superior. She chose him, and she was wrong. Everyone chooses money eventually. Beatrice's eyes turned red. She set the bottle down hard, stepped between my knees, and took my face in both hands. Her palms were warm. Her grip was not gentle. Look at me, she said. I blinked. Beatrice. Not her. Me. Her voice trembled, but her gaze didn't. Nolan Pierce. You are not worthless because a selfish woman failed to recognize what she had. I tried to turn my head. She held me still. You don't get to destroy yourself over her. What do you care? The question came out quieter than I intended. Something moved across her face. Pain. Fear. Then it disappeared behind the expression that had terrified half the hotel industry. Because you helped me once. That was 8 years ago. Kingswell's remember debts. That doesn't explain this. It explains enough. I glanced toward the bottle. Beatrice followed my eyes. If you drink one more glass, I'll buy this restaurant. From behind her, Eli shouted, you can't afford my emotional attachment to the place. She didn't turn around. I'll buy the building and terminate your lease. Eli raised both hands. I withdraw my objection. I laughed. A real laugh. It surprised all three of us. Beatrice's hands loosened against my face. For 1 second, she looked almost relieved. Then I tried to stand. The floor tilted. She caught me around the waist. I'm fine. You are leaning on a chair that isn't there. I planned that. Of course. She pulled my arm over her shoulder. I looked down at her heels. You're gonna break an ankle. Beatrice kicked them off without hesitation. The Black Witch of the hotel industry stood barefoot in Eli's bar, supporting a drunk man who could barely walk. Eli picked up her shoes. I'll have these appraised. Touch the soles, and I'll close your restaurant. See, he said to me, she's worried about you. She only threatens me when she's worried. Beatrice glared at him. Go away. She helped me toward the door. Where are we going? I asked. My apartment. That sounds inappropriate. You're barely conscious. Still handsome. Her ears turned pink. That is not relevant. I leaned closer. Why are you blushing? I am angry. At my face. At your entire personality. She pushed me into the waiting car and climbed in beside me. My head fell against her shoulder. She went completely still. Sorry, I murmured. After a pause, her hand settled carefully against my hair. You don't have to apologize. That was the last thing I heard before everything went dark. I woke up with a headache, a dry mouth, and no idea where my shoes were. For several seconds, I stared at the unfamiliar ceiling and tried to remember whether I had been kidnapped. Then I smelled something burning. A woman cursed in the next room. Not a polite curse. A short, furious one delivered in the same tone Beatrice Kingswell used when informing executives that their careers were over. I sat up too quickly. Pain split through my skull. Bad decision. I muttered. The bedroom door stood open. A glass of water, painkillers, and a neatly folded shirt had been placed on the table beside me. On top of the shirt was a handwritten note. Drink the water. Take the pills. Do not attempt to leave until you can walk in a straight line. Underneath, in smaller writing, this is not imprisonment. My attorney confirmed it. I laughed, then immediately regretted it. I drank the water and stepped into the hallway. That was when I found Beatrice asleep against the wall outside my room. Her head rested at an uncomfortable angle. One hand still held her phone. The other lay over a stack of printed pages. I bent down and read the title, How to Help Someone Recover from Divorce and Career Trauma. Several paragraphs had been highlighted. One section was circled 3 times. Do not force the individual to discuss painful emotions before they are ready. Offer consistency, food, rest, and practical support. Below it, Beatrice had written, Food remains a problem. I covered my mouth, but the laugh escaped anyway. Her eyes opened immediately. For one confused second, she looked vulnerable. Then she straightened and became the Black Witch again. Why are you standing? Because humans occasionally move. You were heavily intoxicated 6 hours ago. I'm aware. You attempted to argue with my elevator. It was arrogant. It has 2 safety certifications. It kept closing the doors before I was ready. Beatrice pushed herself up, then winced and touched the back of her neck. You slept out here? I asked. I was reading. You were unconscious. I finished reading first. I lifted the papers. You printed a divorce recovery guide. It is from a respected clinical organization. You highlighted it. I highlight all important documents. I turned to another page. You wrote, Do not allow Eli to offer advice after midnight. That is a general safety rule. The smoke alarm began screaming. Beatrice's eyes widened. She ran toward the kitchen. I followed more slowly and found a pot producing enough smoke to qualify as an industrial incident. She turned off the burner and grabbed the pot with a towel. What is that? I asked. Hangover soup. It appears angry. I followed the recipe. Did the recipe call for cremation? She set the pot down and glared at me. You were not supposed to wake up yet. I think the fire alarm disagreed. She opened a window and reached for her phone. Who are you calling? My physician. For soup? I need to confirm whether burned ginger remains medically effective. I took the phone from her. No, Nolan, you're not waking a doctor because you lost a fight with broth. I did not lose. The broth is smoking. She crossed her arms. You are being extremely critical for a man who threw one of my shoes at a decorative vase last night. I froze. I did what? You said the vase was judging you. Did I break it? No. Your coordination was terrible. Good. It cost $40,000. I looked at her. You spent $40,000 on a vase? It was from a charity auction. That does not improve the vase. Her mouth twitched. Then she looked away before I could confirm the smile. She poured coffee into a mug and handed it to me. A small card sat beneath it. Today, you do not need to prove anything to anyone. I read it twice. Beatrice watched my face carefully. You can stay here, she said. I have an apartment. You have an apartment filled with unopened boxes, legal notices, and photographs of Sabrina. You inspected it? You were drunk. I needed identification, medication history, and emergency contact information. You called my attorney? I called 3. Of course you did. The guest suite is available. My staff will bring your clothes. No. Her expression sharpened. This is not charity. It looks a lot like charity. Then we'll draft a contract. I'm not signing a lease to live in your guest room. You can provide consulting services. I'm under investigation. You're not banned from thinking. Most companies won't touch me. I'm not most companies. That might be the first accurate thing you've said this morning. Beatrice stepped closer. Nolan, I am not asking you to work today. I don't want to sit here while you rearrange my life. Good. I wasn't planning to ask permission. I gave her a warning look. She sighed. Fine. I will ask permission before rearranging the major parts. How generous. She picked up the ruined pot. Today, you can do nothing. I have calls to make. Then make them. I need to review the licensing complaint. Review it. I need to contact lenders. Contact them. Her voice softened. But you do not have to solve everything before breakfast. I looked down at the coffee. Sabrina had always treated rest as surrender. When her company faced its first crisis, we worked 36 hours without sleep. Later, when I suggested delaying an expansion, she accused me of lacking ambition. Beatrice, who had built her reputation by destroying problems before lunch, was telling me I was allowed to stop. Tomorrow? I asked. You may also do nothing tomorrow. That sounds unlike you. It is extremely unlike me. And the day after? You must eat breakfast. I smiled despite myself. There's the dictator. I preferred disciplined host. You threatened to buy Eli's building. He was interfering. He owns the restaurant. He was still interfering. Her phone rang. She looked at the screen, and her entire posture changed. Her shoulders straightened. Her expression cooled. Kingswell. A man spoke rapidly on the other end. Beatrice listened without interrupting. Then she said, freeze the transaction. A pause. No. Martin, I did not ask whether the committee approved. I said freeze it. She walked toward the study. Crow Capital is trying to move the Harbor Crescent loan through a Kingswell-affiliated bank. Suspend every connected review until compliance completes a beneficial ownership check. Another pause. Her eyes moved to me. No public action yet. Her voice became colder. If anyone warns Damien Crow before the audit begins, I will assume they are participating. She ended the call. I set down my mug. You're investigating him. I'm protecting Kingswell's exposure. You had a file ready before last night. I dislike Damien. You dislike most people. He has earned a more specialized category. She entered the study and placed 3 binders on the desk. Each one had a title: Legal Investigation, Capital Containment. The 3rd binder read, Make him regret being born rich. I picked it up. It was significantly thicker than the others. What's in this? A private strategy. Is it legal? Yes. I waited. She looked away. Mostly. Beatrice. It can be revised. I opened the binder. The first page contained a list of Damien's major lenders: private club memberships, charitable boards, business partners, and real estate holdings. The second page proposed acquiring the management company that operated his flagship resort. The third suggested purchasing the debt on his Manhattan office tower. I closed it. You made this overnight? I had assistance. You planned to buy his debt because he hurt me? He committed fraud. That wasn't my question. Her jaw tightened. He hurt you while committing fraud. You can't start a private war because I got drunk. I can start a private war for almost any reason. No illegal surveillance. Fine. No threatening his family. I would never threaten his family. No punishing employees who don't know what he's doing. Her expression turned serious. Agreed. And no buying random companies just to make him uncomfortable. She stared at me. That restriction is unreasonable. Beatrice. He uses those companies to hide assets, then investigate them. Don't buy them because you're angry. She folded her arms. Acquisition is often faster. Not everything needs to be conquered. Her eyes flashed. That is easy for you to say. You are the one being attacked. And I'm telling you how I want to fight. The anger left her face as quickly as it appeared. She nodded once. Okay. Istaditad. That's it? You said no. People don't usually stop you that easily. You are not people. The words came out before she could control them. We both went silent. Beatrice reached for the first binder. I meant you understand the industry. Right. That was obviously what I meant. Obviously. Her ears turned pink. I pretended not to notice. She opened the legal file and pushed a document toward me. I had outside counsel prepare a consulting agreement. I read the first page. The compensation was generous but not insulting. The scope placed me in direct control of the investigation. Every analyst assigned to the project would report to me, not Beatrice. You did this before asking whether I wanted the job. I prepared an option. You prepared 12 pages. I like complete options. I turned to the last page. There was no hidden ownership clause, no permanent licensing demand, no language allowing Kingswell to absorb my systems. You gave me final authority over my intellectual property. Yes. Why? Because it belongs to you. The answer was so simple that it hurt. I looked away. Beatrice noticed. She did not ask what I was feeling. She did not touch me. She simply moved a pen closer and said, "You don't have to sign today." I sat back. "You really read that guide?" I read everything. Did it tell you to leave strange motivational notes on her coffee cups? No, that was my idea. It was surprisingly human. She frowned. I am human. Industry reports remained divided. She picked up a paper clip and threw it at me. I caught it. Violence. I said, "The recovery guide specifically warns against this. It also recommends physical activity. Throwing office supplies is not exercise." It improved my mood. I laughed again. She looked at me for a few seconds, and something in her face softened. Then her phone rang. This time, she rejected the call. Important? I asked. A board meeting. You just ignored your board? They can survive 10 minutes. Why? She gathered the breakfast dishes, avoiding my eyes. Because you're smiling. The room went quiet. Beatrice carried the dishes to the kitchen before I could answer. That afternoon, I tried to work. I lasted 20 minutes. Every contract reminded me of Sabrina. Every audit line brought back the boardroom. Every altered date made my hands tighten around the papers. I closed the file and walked into the guest room. Then I locked the door. No one knocked for almost an hour. I expected Beatrice to enter anyway. She didn't. When I finally opened the door, a fresh cup of coffee sat on the floor. Beside it was another note. "You are still Nolan Pierce on days when you accomplish nothing." I picked it up. Beatrice stood at the far end of the hallway, pretending to read an email. "You know I can see you." I said, "I live here." "You were waiting." I was walking slowly. "For an hour?" She put away her phone. "Do you need me to come in?" The question caught me off guard. She could have bought my hotel's debt. She could have ordered investigators to tear apart Damien's empire. She could have opened the door and told me exactly what to do. Instead, she waited for permission. "Not yet," I said. Her face didn't change. "Okay." She turned to leave. "Beatrice." She stopped. "Thank you." Her shoulders lowered slightly. "You're welcome." That evening, Eli arrived carrying groceries and enough curiosity to be dangerous. He entered the kitchen, saw Beatrice in an apron, and stopped. "What happened to the terrifying heiress?" "She is attempting beef stew," I said. Eli looked into the pot. "Is the beef aware?" Beatrice pointed the wooden spoon at him. "You are here because Nolan likes you. Do not test the limits of that protection." Eli looked at me. "She threatens me while wearing an apron." It's been a complicated day. Beatrice tasted the stew and frowned. "What is wrong with it?" I took the spoon from her. The meat resisted my teeth. "It has structural integrity. That is not helpful. You could use it to reinforce the hotel foundation." She chased me around the kitchen with the spoon. Eli watched us for several seconds. Then he smiled in a way I didn't trust. "What?" I asked. "Nothing. You're clearly thinking something offensive." "I'm thinking you look more alive than you did yesterday." Beatrice stopped moving. I did too. Eli picked up a carrot and bit into it. Then he looked between us. "And I'm thinking this arrangement is going to become very interesting." "It is a professional arrangement," Beatrice said immediately. "I didn't say it wasn't. You implied something." "I implied the stew might kill him." She narrowed her eyes. Eli leaned toward me and whispered loudly, "She likes you." Beatrice dropped the spoon. "I will buy your restaurant." Eli Krinev. There she is. That night, I signed the consulting agreement. Not because I was ready. I wasn't. But for the first time since Sabrina destroyed my name, someone had placed power in my hands without trying to take something in return. Beatrice signed beneath my name. Then she held out her hand. "Partners?" I looked at her. She appeared calm, but her fingers were tense. I took her hand. "Partners." Her grip tightened. Just once. Then she let go before I could wonder why I wished she hadn't. 3 weeks after I signed the agreement with Beatrice, I found the first transaction Damien had tried to bury. It was hidden beneath 6 holding companies, 2 offshore trusts, and a loan described as a strategic hospitality development advance. It wasn't an advance. It was a rescue line. Pro Capital had borrowed $800 million against assets that had already been pledged somewhere else. I pushed the documents across the conference table. Damien's fund isn't growing. I said, it's bleeding. Beatrice scanned the page without changing expression. Her chief financial analyst, Martin Halle, leaned closer. How long does he have? Without Sabrina's IPO? I tapped the cash flow column. For months. Maybe 5 if his lenders don't compare collateral records. Martin looked at Beatrice. She closed the file. Send the evidence to compliance and outside counsel. Quietly, Martin asked. No. I raised an eyebrow. Beatrice noticed. She sighed. Quietly, she corrected. For now. Martin left before she could change her mind. I leaned back. You wanted to announce it at breakfast, didn't you? I wanted every lender in Manhattan to receive a copy before Damien finished his coffee. That would warn him. It would also ruin his coffee. Your priorities remain concerning. She crossed her arms. You enjoy stopping me. I enjoy preventing expensive mistakes. You stopped me from acquiring his office building. You were going to raise the rent on his own firm. It was a sound commercial plan. You wrote, humiliation surcharge in the margin. That was an internal note. I smiled. Beatrice tried to remain cold, but the corner of her mouth moved. Those moments had become common. So had lunch. I cooked. She pretended it was an efficient use of our workday. Her secretary once tried to take the empty containers from her desk. Beatrice pulled the lunch bag closer and said, Mr. Pierce prepared this personally. The secretary stared at her. I was only going to wash it. I will handle it. Beatrice had carried the empty container home like it contained classified material. I should have understood then. Maybe I did. I just wasn't ready to name it. That afternoon, my phone displayed Sabrina's name for the first time since the divorce was finalized. I let it ring twice. Beatrice noticed from across the table. You don't have to answer. I know. The phone stopped. Then a message appeared. Please. I found something about Damien. I stood. I need privacy. Beatrice's expression remained neutral. Of course. She gathered her files and walked toward the door. Beatrice. She stopped. This isn't personal. Her fingers tightened around the folder. I didn't ask. I know. That was the problem. She never asked me to explain what she had no right to demand. She simply made space and trusted me to return. I called Sabrina. She answered immediately. Nolan. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. What did you find? No greeting. No comfort. I wasn't going to let regret disguise itself as intimacy. Damien has been moving funds through subsidiaries connected to Foster House. She said. I thought they were acquisition vehicles. They're debt containers. Silence. You knew? I warned you. I didn't understand the scale. You didn't want to. She inhaled sharply. I deserve that. This isn't about what you deserve. Send me the documents. I can bring them. No. Nolan. Please. Her voice cracked. I need to see you. I need the evidence. Can we not speak like strangers? I looked through the glass wall. Beatrice stood outside with her back to me, reviewing messages. She was giving me privacy, but she was close enough to come in if I asked. Sabrina. We are strangers in every way that matters now. We were married for 7 years, and you used that marriage to help Damien frame me. I was angry. You voted to destroy my career. I thought you were trying to sabotage me. You knew the audit dates were wrong. She said nothing. I lowered my voice. You didn't believe the report. You decided it was useful. I made a mistake. No. You made a choice. I know. I heard her crying. Months earlier. That sound would have pulled me across any distance. Now it only made me tired. Damien told me you were afraid I'd become more successful than you. She whispered. He said every restriction was about control, and you wanted to believe him. He made me feel like you didn't know anyone. Yes, you never owed me success. Sabrina, you owed me honesty. I know that now. Send the files. She hesitated. Will you help me? I'll help expose Damien. I mean us. There it was. Not a confession. A negotiation. I can testify. She continued quickly. I can explain the audit. I can tell the board I was manipulated. We could fix the company together. You want to trade evidence for a second chance. No. That's exactly what you're doing. I still love you. I closed my eyes. You love what I did for you. That's not fair. No. What wasn't fair was offering me $5 million for the work that made your company possible. I was scared, and I was your husband. She cried harder. I know I failed you. You did. Then let me make it right. Tell the truth. And after that, you live with what the truth costs. She went quiet. I ended the call and stood there longer than necessary. When I opened the door, Beatrice looked up. She didn't ask whether Sabrina wanted me back. She handed me coffee. Too much sugar. She said, "You look like you needed it." I took the cup. She has evidence. Good. She also wants to reconcile. Beatrice's face went still. Understood. That's all? What would you like me to say? I don't know. Her gaze dropped to the coffee in my hand. If you want to return to her, I will still complete the investigation. The words were calm. Her fingers were not. They were gripping the folder hard enough to bend it. Why would you do that? Because your innocence does not depend on who you love. I stared at her. Beatrice lifted her chin. Do not look at me like that. Like what? Too closely. You're the one who told me to look at you. That was under different circumstances. You were holding my face. You were drunk. You threatened to buy a restaurant. You were being difficult. I stepped closer. Her eyes moved to mine, then immediately away. Beatrice. What? Did you mean it? Her throat moved. Which part? That I wasn't people. She opened her mouth. Then Martin entered without knocking. We have a problem. Beatrice stepped away so quickly she struck the edge of the table. I caught her elbow. She froze beneath my hand. Martin looked between us. I can return later. No. Beatrice said too fast. Speak. He placed a file on the table. Someone submitted financial records claiming Nolan received consulting kickbacks through an account in Zurich. I released Beatrice and opened the file. The transfer history looked convincing. Too convincing. They used one of my old corporate accounts. I said. Martin pointed at a signature. The bank authentication matches your archived records. It was copied from a vendor authorization. Beatrice's expression changed. The warmth disappeared. What agency received this? State licensing, 2 trade publications, and the lender handling the Pierce Hotel foreclosure. My stomach tightened when, 40 minutes ago, my phone rang. The hotel's site manager. Jack Murphy. I answered. Jack. Someone cut the power to the fire suppression pumps. I stood. What? We caught it during inspection. 2 control valves were also damaged. Was anyone hurt? No. But the fire marshal suspended the reopening review. Beatrice was already reaching for her phone. I caught her wrist. She looked at me. Don't. Damien attacked your hotel, and he wants an emotional response. I can freeze every line of credit he has by noon, not without exposing our investigation. He could have killed someone. He didn't. Jack caught it. This time, her eyes were cold, but her wrist trembled beneath my fingers. I won't allow him to keep hurting you. You don't get to decide this for me. Her jaw clenched. I am trying to protect you. I know. Then let go. No. Martin quietly walked out. Beatrice stared at me. Nolan, if you crush him now, he'll claim you used Kingswell's power to protect a corrupt partner. I don't care what he claims. I do. Why? Because I need to clear my own name. Her expression shifted. I released her wrist, then placed my hand over hers on the table. This time, let me finish it. She looked down at our hands. What if he comes after you again? He will. What if the hotel is damaged? I'll rebuild it. What if the evidence isn't enough? Then I'll find more. Her voice dropped. And what if you fall apart again? The question held no judgment, only fear. I tightened my hand around hers. Then I'll know where to go. She looked up. Her eyes turned bright. I added, but I'm not planning to fall. Beatrice stood very still. Then she nodded. Okay, that easily? No. Her fingers closed around mine. Nothing about this is easy. I didn't let go. Neither did she. We spent the next 48 hours building the case. Sabrina sent internal emails, board messages, and copies of Damien's transfer requests. One email contained the sentence we needed. Once the IPO closes, move the legacy liabilities into Foster Development Holdings. Sabrina will sign whatever is required. Damien had never considered her a partner. He had considered her a signature. I traced the transaction timeline while Beatrice's legal team verified the accounts. At 2 in the morning, she fell asleep at the conference table. Her cheek rested against one arm. The other hand still held a pen. I removed my jacket and placed it over her shoulders. Her eyes opened. I wasn't sleeping. You were negotiating with the table. I was thinking. You drooled on a debt schedule. She sat up instantly. I did not. I smiled. Her face turned pink. Give me that document. No. Nolan, you need sleep. So do you. I'm less terrifying when tired. That remains unproven. She reached for the paper. I held it above her head. Beatrice stood and stepped close enough that her shoulder pressed against my chest. She reached again. I placed a hand at her waist to steady her. Her body went rigid. So did mine. Her face was inches from mine. Neither of us moved. Then she whispered, "You can let go. Do you want me to?" Her eyes lifted to mine. For a second, the black witch disappeared. There was only Beatrice, the woman who had slept outside my door. The woman who had learned to cook food she didn't like because I once mentioned my mother's breakfast. The woman who could destroy Damien in a day but agreed to stand behind me because I asked. She stepped back. Yes. The answer came too late. I let her go anyway. The next morning, Eli found me in the kitchen making lunch. He glanced at the second container. That one for Beatrice? She forgets to eat. She owns 17 hotels with restaurants. She likes my cooking. She likes you. I closed the lid harder than necessary. We're partners. Eli nodded solemnly. And I'm a ballet dancer. She has never said anything. She says it every day. She has not. She took a drunk man home, slept outside his door, built him an office, threatened his enemies, practiced his mother's breakfast 17 times, and lets him stop her revenge plans with one word. I looked at him. 17? She asked me for the recipe. You gave it to her? She threatened to audit my restaurant. That sounds like her. Eli leaned against the counter. She's not hiding it. Nolan, she's just not putting it in words. Why not? Because you were married when she fell for you. I stopped moving. Eli's expression lost its humor. She knew you were happy, so she stayed away. How do you know? She told me once when she was drunk. Beatrice gets drunk? Apparently only when certain idiots announce engagements. I stared at him. 8 years. The fire investigation. The parking garage. The projects we had completed together. Every time Beatrice had looked away when I thanked her. Every invitation she had declined after Sabrina and I married. She doesn't love me, I said, but the words sounded weak. Eli snorted. Right. She might love an idea of me. Then why did she sit outside your door when the real version was drunk, unemployed, and arguing with furniture? I looked down at the lunch container. Eli's voice softened. You're not confused about her. I just ended a marriage. That isn't what scares you. I met his eyes. He was no longer smiling. You're afraid you're starting to love her too, he said, because once you admit that, you have something to lose again. I didn't answer. I carried the lunch into the study. Beatrice stood by the window, speaking to a lender. She saw the container in my hand. Her entire expression softened before she turned away to hide it. That small reaction did more damage to my denial than Eli's entire speech. She ended the call. What is it? Lunch. You didn't have to cook. I know. She took the container carefully. Our fingers touched. She looked at me. This time, I didn't look away. Beatrice lasted 3 seconds before her gaze dropped. Why are you staring? I'm thinking. About Damien? No. Her face turned red. Before she could ask, Martin entered with a flash drive. We found the original server logs. I took it from him. Every altered audit file had been created from Damien's private office. Every false transfer record had been uploaded by his chief financial officer. And the hotel sabotage payment had come from a Crow-controlled security contractor. The case was complete. Beatrice watched me insert the drive into the computer. What do you want to do? She asked. Not what she wanted. Not what Kingswell's lawyers recommended. What I wanted. I looked at the evidence that could restore my name. Then I looked at the woman who had never once tried to own my choices. We finished this publicly, I said. Beatrice's eyes sharpened. At the Foster House shareholder meeting? Yes. Damien will be there. I'm counting on it. A slow, dangerous smile appeared on her face. May I ruin his morning? I smiled back. Legally. Her smile faded slightly. You take all the joy out of revenge. But you'll behave. She lifted her chin. For you. This time, neither of us pretended she meant only the investigation. Damien smiled when I entered the Foster House shareholder meeting. That told me he still believed I was desperate. Sabrina sat at the head of the table, pale and rigid. She didn't look at him. She looked at me, then at Beatrice walking beside me. Beatrice wore the expression that had earned her the name Black Witch. Half the room stood when she entered. Damien remained seated. This is a private meeting, he said. Beatrice pulled out the chair beside mine. Then you should have been more careful about inviting criminals. His smile disappeared. Sabrina's fingers tightened around her pen. Nolan, she said quietly. What are you doing here? Finishing the audit you helped fake. Several directors shifted in their seats. Damien leaned back. Mr. Pierce is under investigation for bribery and data theft. Allowing him to speak exposes the company to additional liability. I placed a flash drive on the table. The bribery records came from your office. He didn't blink. That's an accusation. No, this is an accusation. I connected my laptop to the screen. The first document appeared. A transfer from Crow Capital to a Zurich account bearing my company's name. Then I displayed the account registration. The account was created 12 days after Sabrina removed me from Foster House. The authentication signature was copied from a vendor contract I signed 3 years ago. One director leaned forward. Can that be proven? I opened the server records. The forged document was uploaded from Damien's private office at 2:14 a.m. His chief financial officer accessed the same file 6 minutes later. Damien turned towards Sabrina. You gave him internal access? She looked at him with open disgust. I gave him the records you told me didn't exist. His jaw tightened. I changed the display. The false audit used to remove me was edited on the same server. The dates were altered. Payment records were created after the board notice had already been drafted. A director named Walter Briggs adjusted his glasses. Who authorized the report? Damien answered immediately. Independent compliance. I displayed an invoice. The compliance firm is owned through 2 holding companies by Crow Capital. Every head turned toward him. He rose. This meeting is becoming a performance. Beatrice crossed one leg over the other. You should sit down. The ending is better. Damien looked at her. You think Kingswell money makes you untouchable? No. Her voice stayed calm. Competence does. I put the next transaction map on the screen. Red lines connected Crow Capital, Foster House subsidiaries, and a group of distressed properties. Damien's fund has pledged the same assets to multiple lenders. It is insolvent. The room erupted. Damien raised his voice. That analysis is speculative. It's based on your loan agreements, stolen loan agreements, provided by the person you plan to leave responsible for the debt. I looked at Sabrina. She swallowed, then stood. Damien told me the new subsidiaries were acquisition vehicles. She said, they weren't. He intended to transfer more than $1 billion in liabilities into Foster Development Holdings after the IPO. Damien stared at her. You have no idea what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. He stepped toward her. You would have nothing without me. Sabrina flinched but held her ground. No, I had a company before you. A company your husband built. The insult landed differently than he intended. Sabrina's face drained of color. Damien realized his mistake too late. I folded my arms. Thank you for finally admitting it. He pointed at me. You were finished. I gave her a way forward. You gave her borrowed money and called it power. You think this changes anything? Your name is still poisoned. I displayed the security contractor's bank records. This company received $200,000 from a Crow-controlled account. Then I played the audio recording. Damien's chief of security spoke clearly through the speakers. Delay the Pierce reopening. Damage the pump system, but make it look like neglected maintenance. The room went silent. Sabrina covered her mouth. Damien moved toward my laptop. 2 federal agents entered before he reached it. Behind them came investigators from the state attorney general's office. Damien stopped. For the first time since I met him, he looked afraid. One agent stepped forward. Damien Crow, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges including securities fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction. Damien turned towards Sabrina. You did this. She shook her head. No, you did. The agents took his arms. He looked at me over his shoulder. This isn't over. Beatrice stood. It is for you. I touched her wrist. Beatrice. She pressed her lips together. Then, despite the fury in her eyes, she sat down. Even with Damien being led away, she listened when I asked her to stop. Several directors noticed. Eli, watching from the back of the room, noticed most of all. He gave me a look that said he planned to become unbearable about it later. The board voted within the hour. Damien's transactions were frozen. Sabrina was removed as chief executive pending a criminal and civil review. My professional suspension was lifted 2 days later. The licensing committee issued a public statement clearing me of wrongdoing. Clients who had refused my calls began leaving messages. I answered very few of them. I was done building other people's dreams while asking permission to protect my own. With the evidence cleared and Kingswell backing the restructuring contract, I stopped the auction of my father's hotel. I bought out the distressed debt. The property became the first hotel under Pierce Independent Hospitality. Not Sabrina's company. Not Kingswell's empire. Mine. Beatrice never asked for equity. When I offered it, She pushed the contract back. You already paid Kingswell under our agreement. You did more than the agreement required. So did you 8 years ago? I told you I didn't want you to owe me. Her eyes softened. Neither do I. A week later, Sabrina came to the hotel. The lobby was still under renovation. She stood near the front desk where my father had once taught me how to greet guests. She looked exhausted. I heard you kept the original name, she said. Pier's house belonged to my parents before it belonged to me. She nodded. I remember your father correcting me when I called it old-fashioned. He corrected everyone. He liked me. He did. Her eyes filled. Would he hate me now? I shook my head. He would be disappointed. He didn't waste much time hating people. She let out a broken laugh. You sound like him. I waited. Sabrina rubbed her bare ring finger. I'm cooperating with the investigation. That's the right thing to do. The board is selling Foster House. I heard. I may lose everything. You'll lose the company. Her face tightened. Is that supposed to make me feel better? No. It's supposed to be accurate. You still have your life, your health, and the chance to become someone who doesn't blame other people for her choices. She looked toward the construction crew. I thought success would make me feel secure. It didn't. No. She looked back at me. It made me afraid everyone could see I needed you. So you punish me for being necessary. I know. She stepped closer. We had 7 years. Nolan, we did. You can't have forgotten all of it. I haven't. Then how can you stand there like none of it matters? Because remembering love doesn't require returning to harm. Tears ran down her face. Damien gave me an illusion. You gave me everything real, and you treated what was real as disposable. I'm sorry. I believe you. Hope flashed across her face. I ended it before it could grow. But your apology does not create another marriage. Her lips trembled. It's Beatrice, isn't it? I didn't answer quickly enough. Sabrina gave a bitter laugh. She was waiting for this. No. She took you home the second we divorced. She took me home because I was too drunk to stand. She wanted you for years. That may be true. She used your worst moment. A cold voice came from behind us. I can answer that accusation myself. Beatrice stood near the entrance. Her face was expressionless, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. Sabrina turned toward her. You were always watching him. Beatrice's eyes hardened. Yes. The honesty surprised both of us. But while he was married, I stayed away. You expect me to believe that? I declined private invitations when you attended. I refused projects that required unnecessary travel with him. I never contacted him about anything unrelated to business. Sabrina scoffed. How noble. Beatrice took one step forward. I did not respect you enough to protect your marriage for your sake. Beatrice, I warned. She glanced at me. Then she took a breath. I respected him. Sabrina's face twisted. You still took advantage of him when he was broken. Before Beatrice could answer, I walked to her side and took her hand. She looked down at our fingers, startled. Then she looked at me. She didn't ask me for anything. I said. Sabrina stared at us. She gave me a place to recover. She gave me resources under a fair contract. She gave me control of my own investigation. Every time she had the power to decide for me, she asked what I wanted. I tightened my grip on Beatrice's hand. The person who took advantage of my trust was you. Sabrina wiped her face. You're really choosing her. I'm choosing the life I built after you tried to erase me. She looked at Beatrice one last time. Then she walked away. Beatrice waited until the doors closed. You didn't have to hold my hand. I wanted to. Her face changed. The coldness disappeared. You should not say things like that casually. I'm not being casual. She pulled her hand away. Nolan, the contractors need you. Beatrice, I have a meeting. She left before I could stop her. After that, she started disappearing from my life. At first, she blamed work. Then she moved my files out of her study. She stopped leaving coffee outside my door because I had moved back to my apartment. She stopped sending late-night messages. When I asked her to dinner, she answered, You have an opening schedule to finish. Don't let me distract you. Finally, I went to her office. She stood behind her desk and refused to meet my eyes. You're avoiding me. I'm giving you space. I didn't ask for space. You no longer need help. I didn't say I did. That's my point. She closed a folder too carefully. You recovered. Your name is clear. The hotel is yours. Our contract is complete. So you're leaving. I am returning to my normal life. What if I don't want your normal life? Her fingers went still. Nolan, what? She finally looked at me. Fear sat beneath her controlled expression. I won't let gratitude become a promise you regret. You think I'm grateful. I know you are. You think that's all. I think you were hurt. And I was there. You were there 8 years before I was hurt. Her face turned pale. Eli talks too much. He told me enough. She walked around the desk. Then you know why I stayed silent. You thought I was happy. You were married. And now you are free. That sounds like a good time to tell me the truth. Her eyes turned red. I love you. The words came out sharp, almost angry. I have loved you for years. I hated every person who underestimated you. I hated Sabrina when she made you doubt yourself. I hated myself for being relieved when the marriage ended. She pressed a hand against her chest. But I will not take your gratitude and call it love. I stepped toward her. She stepped back. I need time, she said. Then she left me standing in her office. Eli listened to the story while cutting vegetables in his restaurant kitchen. When I finished, he nodded. Congratulations. For what? Your professional intelligence has returned. I'm asking for advice. No, you're asking me to confirm the obvious. I don't want to hurt her. Then stop making her wait. I need to be sure. Eli put down the knife. When the hotel funding came through, who did you call first? Beatrice. When your license was restored? Beatrice. When you wake up at 2 in the morning? I didn't answer. He smiled. You don't miss being rescued. You miss her. 3 nights later, I rented out Eli's bar. The television was off. There was no alcohol on the table. Instead, I placed the divorce recovery guide, photographs from the hotel restoration, and a bowl containing Beatrice's latest attempt at beef stew. Eli looked into the bowl. You're proposing beside a building material. It matters to us. It may also violate health regulations. Beatrice arrived 10 minutes late. She stopped when she saw me. Her hands tightened around her purse. What is this? A conversation. Her expression became guarded. If you want to formally end our partnership, your attorneys can. Look at me. She stopped. I walked toward her and took her face in both hands, the way she had held mine that night. Her breath caught. Nolan. Not the contract. Not the hotel. Me. Her eyes filled. You told me to look at you when I couldn't see anything except what I'd lost. I brushed my thumbs beneath her eyes. Now I need you to stop looking at the broken man you helped. She tried to turn away. I held her gently. This time, don't hide. I'm not hiding. You're terrible at lying to me. I am excellent at lying. Not when you're scared. Her lips parted. I lowered myself onto one knee. Beatrice stared at me. For once, she had no response. I opened the ring box. You stayed when I couldn't work, sleep, or believe my own name mattered. Her tears fell. But I don't love you because you saved me. She covered her mouth. I love you because after I found myself again, you were still the first person I wanted to see. Her shoulders shook. I want your terrible cooking. I want your revenge plans with legal revisions. I want you threatening Eli before breakfast. Eli spoke from behind the bar. I object to that part. Beatrice didn't look away from me. I smiled. I want ordinary mornings with the most terrifying woman in the hotel industry. I held up the ring. Beatrice Kingswell. Will you marry me? She made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Then she threw herself at me. I barely caught her. We fell against the chair. She wrapped both arms around my neck and buried her face against me. Eli cleared his throat. She hasn't said yes. Shut up. Beatrice snapped. Legally, this remains unresolved. She grabbed my collar and kissed me. There was nothing careful about it. When she pulled back, her face was red and wet with tears. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes, I'll marry you. I slid the ring on her finger. She stared at it. I waited 8 years. I know. No, you don't. You announced your engagement 3 days before I planned to tell you. That explains Eli's story about you getting drunk. Her head snapped toward him. You told him? Eli began backing away. I support honesty in relationships. I will buy this restaurant. I pulled her back into my arms. Beatrice. Enough. Her eyes narrowed. Then she sighed and rested her forehead against mine. Fine. Eli pointed at her. That right there is terrifying. 6 months later, Pierce's house reopened. The lobby was full of reporters, employees, and former partners who suddenly remembered they had always believed in me. Beatrice stood beside me in a white suit, wearing the cold expression she saved for cameras. A reporter raised her hand. Ms. Kingswell, why did you decide to marry Nolan Pierce? Beatrice answered without hesitation. Because he is exceptional. The room murmured approvingly. I leaned toward the microphone. The real reason is that she had a crush on me for 8 years. Her ears turned red. Under the table, her heel landed on my shoe. I winced. The reporters laughed. Beatrice smiled without showing teeth. My husband occasionally confuses courage with poor judgment. I reached under the table and took her hand. Her fingers immediately intertwined with mine. I lowered my voice. You don't have to wait anymore. She looked at me. The cameras, the company, and the crowd disappeared from her expression. I know, she whispered. Then she squeezed my hand and faced the world beside me. My marriage had ended with someone trying to prove my love had made me weak. My new life began with a woman powerful enough to destroy my enemies, yet strong enough to let me stand on my own. Sabrina taught me that sincerity could be exploited. Beatrice taught me that exploitation did not make sincerity a mistake. It only meant I had given it to the wrong person. This time, when I looked beside me, the woman holding my hand was looking back.